Thanks for joining us on this edition of National Focus. I'm Colette Ambo. Coming up, government's strong foreign policy has been credited for the Rosalie Link Road. The Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities is set to observe International Day for Persons with Disabilities. And today, December 1st, is World AIDS Day. Stay tuned for details of these and other stories after this.
If you can believe this,
come by my house and let me show you some movies.
why can't you believe this? Some mothers don't believe their own children when they say they've been sexually abused, and they don't report it. Remember, if anyone asks to see or touch their private parts, touches them inappropriately, shows them or forces them to touch one's private parts, has sex with them, shows them pornographic material, or deliberately lets them hear or see the act of sex, then it is sexual abuse. Believe your child and report the sexual abuse. For more information about child abuse, contact these agencies. This message brought to you by UNICEF and this station.
Let's have some fun, eh?
I'm not ready for your kind of fun yet.
But everybody else is doing it.
But I'm not everybody else. I'm me, and I want to do well in school.
Well, you definitely get an A for attitude.
I plan to get an A in life, and then I'll think of your kind of fun.
So what am I to do in the meantime?
You'll survive.
Say no when you're not ready. Use condoms when you are.
Thanks for staying with us. On Friday, the government of Dominica and the Petrocaribe Dominica signed contracts with 7 contractors who will execute drainage works on the Petite Soufriere Rosalie Link Road. Government is crediting that major achievement to what it considered an extraordinary friendship between the governments of the Bolivarian Republic of Venezuela and Dominica. The project is now in phase 5, and within the first quarter of next year, technical experts will begin blasting the formidable wash mark, which has posed the greatest challenge to the completion of the Link Road. That phase is costing $2.4 million of grant funds from Venezuela through Petrocaribe Dominica. Dominica's Honorable Prime Minister Roosevelt Skerrit says this is a product of a real friendship, which is how he sees bilateral relations.
Let's understand this very carefully. Relationship between countries is no different than relationships between you and your neighbor. If your neighbor is cursing you every day, telling you this about your wife, telling this about your children, telling you God will good for you and calling the devil upon you, when his house is on fire, do you think you'll be the first one to run and help him? I mean, but if it's good to you, when you have some agricultural produce, you kill a cow, you call him and tell him, look a piece, look some dashing, look some potatoes and so forth, because he's a good neighbor. He looks out for you. You can leave your children if the neighbor, if you're going out. That is what relationship is.
These relationships between Dominica and its esteemed friends have been for the benefit of all Dominicans, the Prime Minister says. The Honorable Minister responsible for Petrocaribe, Reginald Austri, made a point of stating that Dominica's leader is central to the bilateral relationships which Dominica enjoys with its partners.
The relationship is defined by the relation between the head of state and the party and the other party. And so Roosevelt Skerrit has been a significant player in anything that has happened here between Venezuela and Petrocaribe. And you can go to the other islands and they will attest that Dominica has benefited more than any other country in the CARICOM region or OECS under the Petrocaribe agreement. In fact, Dominica is the envy of these other countries as far as the benefits derived from Petrocaribe is concerned. And it ranges from education, infrastructure development, cultural exchanges, and I can mention to you the abattoir, the coffee plant, the distribution center. All these are benefits that have been derived from the Petrocaribe agreement. Now, a lot of people believe that the next government, it will be the same thing, there will be no changes. But the trust and confidence that is placed not only in the country, but in the leadership of the Dominican Labour Party, and I say Roosevelt Skerrit, that is what defines the success of the relationship between us. And I can say to you, based on the vacillations of all the other parties, the relationship will never be the same without Roosevelt Skerrit and the Dominican Labour Party.
Honorable Austri added that this partnership is clearly reaping results. Franklin Lawrence of Rivia Sirik is one of the 7 contractors who received his advance on Friday to begin work. He is proof of those results.
I feel good. I feel very good, especially that I have the young people in mind so that I could employ and things. So that makes me really feel happy too, not only for myself but for the workers getting employed.
Lawrence says he will begin by hiring 7 young workers. Asked about his thoughts on the project, he had this to say.
I think the government now really helping the employers on a whole, and then motivating contractors so that they can be a certain time in life, you know, so that one day I can be a bigger contractor one day.
The Pan American Health Organization, PAHO, says more people in Latin America and the Caribbean living with HIV/AIDS are being treated with antiretroviral medications. Antiretroviral treatment, or ART, involves medications that treat HIV. The drugs do not kill or cure the virus. However, when taken in combination, they can prevent the growth of the virus. Antiretroviral drugs are also referred to as ARV. PAHO says nearly 600,000 more people are receiving antiretroviral treatment for HIV in the region now than in 2003. Every December 1st, the world observes World AIDS Day. This year's theme for World AIDS Day is Close the Gap for an AIDS-Free Generation. The goal is to bridge the gap between people who have access to HIV prevention, treatment, care, and support services and those who are being left behind. According to PAHO's Dominican-born director, Dr. Carissa Etienne, quote, over the past decade, countries in Latin America and the Caribbean have increased access to health services needed by people with HIV, including medicines. End of quote. She adds that controlling the epidemic by 2030 would be possible if countries implement a combined prevention strategy and if everyone knows their HIV status, gets the treatment they need, and lives free of stigma and discrimination. Meanwhile, the International Labour Organization reports that the goal of ending AIDS by 2030 can only be achieved if the needs of those living with HIV are effectively addressed. These include decent jobs, respect for their labor rights, and social protection coverage. HIV-related discrimination, gender-based violence, and inequalities remain major obstacles to the uptake of HIV services, including testing. The ILO reports that as of 2013, 19 million out of an estimated 35 million people living with HIV worldwide, more than half, were unaware of their HIV status. Responding to this challenge, the ILO launched the VCT at Work initiative in collaboration with the UN AIDS and a range of partners. To date, the initiative has reached over 1 million workers and mobilized close to 500,000 to undertake the HIV test, 63% of whom are men. Closer to home, a recent interview with Nurse Julie Frampton, coordinator of the HIV response unit, revealed that in Dominica at the end of 2013, there were 410 confirmed cases, cumulative from 1987 to present. Nurse Frampton said that on an annual basis, there are 12 to 15 new cases on the island. She says Dominica has not seen a vast increase in the number of new cases, which is why there is a need for continued public awareness. Frampton says, quote, nobody is responsible for your sexual behavior but yourself, end of quote. She advises all to be selfish with their lives, Earlier this year, the Ministry of Health discussed the strategic plan to address the health needs for HIV-positive individuals, as well as interventions to reduce the risk of HIV transmission to others. The main goals of the plan are to reduce the incidence of HIV in Dominica and alleviate negative impacts on individuals. MV Thompson Celebration of TUI Cruises made its first of 11 calls to Dominica for the 2014-2015 cruise season on Saturday, November 29th at the Rosa cruise ship berth. The ship, with a passenger capacity of 1,378, sailed from St. Kitts to Dominica, following which it sailed to Barbados. The ship's captain and crew were welcomed by several bodies, including the Ministry of Tourism, the Discover Dominica Authority, the Dominica Air and Seaport Authority, the ship's agents, among others. Benoit Bardwell, Chief Executive Officer of DASPA and Chairman of DDA, welcomed the captain and crew to the island, encouraging them to take full advantage of what Dominica has to offer.
It is indeed a pleasure on behalf of the board, management and staff of the Air and Seaports Authority for me to say welcome to you and to the vessel and passengers of the Thompson Celebration here to Dominica. As we spoke earlier, you indicated clearly that the country has retained its value in terms of its greenness since you've last been here. And you've been here, as was said a while ago, 2 decades ago, and we have preserved it for you and for future generations because we are the nature island of the Caribbean, and we're very proud to say so. In fact, we try to accommodate as best way as we can to ensure that your passengers, we exceed their expectations in terms of the experience when they come on the island. So we want to continue to encourage you and your crew and the passengers to continue to experience the best of Dominica, and we would say enjoy it, and we do hope that when your passengers come back from the various stores, that indeed they would want to ensure that Thompson Cruises put Dominica back on the itinerary for future visits.
Bardwell also highlighted government's plans to modify the Rosa cruise ship berth to allow for large ships and made reference to its $4.5 million investment of a 500,000-gallon storage tank at Mont Bruce, which ensures that irrespective of time of day, ships can load water. Captain of the Thompson Celebration, Wojciech Zilokowski, who made his first visit to Dominica 2 decades ago, was overwhelmed with the hospitality provided by the Dominican people.
On behalf of Thompson Cruises and everybody on board, we would like to thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to meet you, to see you, and get to know you. The Thompson Celebration will be calling to Dominica almost every week. We have a couple of calls scheduled in the next incoming weeks, and then for the rest of the season there's a few more. As the gentleman already mentioned, I've been here 20 years ago, and the breathtaking view arriving this morning to this wonderful island was the same as it was 20 years ago. So it is absolutely wonderful. My capacity 20 years ago was different. I was second officer, so I had much more time to go and explore, and I fully enjoyed it. And I hope that this time, regardless the busy days that we normally have on board, I will have a chance to see the island, and we would also encourage all our crew and of course the guests to go and explore this wonderful, beautiful island.
Chief Technical Officer in the Ministry of Tourism, Edward Henderson, delivered remarks on behalf of the Honorable Tourism Minister.
I want on behalf of the Ministry of Tourism to again add my bit of welcome to all of you, and especially Captain and crew and your guests for being here today as our guests, so to speak. Dominica has proved itself as a nature isle, and most people who come on cruises enjoy Dominica. And we have good collaborators. We have the ports, the forestry division, Dominica Hotel and Tourism Association. All of us work together to make the product what it is. And so we are happy that you are here with us. We enjoy the fact that you have chosen Dominica, and we hope that you'll continue to make it a destination in the future. As we continue to improve, we hope you will spread the message so that others will also come to visit this country.
The welcome ceremony included a token of exchange to commemorate the ship's inaugural call. The MV Thompson Celebration is one of 2 TUI vessels visiting the island. For the 2014-2015 cruise ship season, the TUI vessels will make a total of 22 calls to the island. Approximately 191 cruise ships are expected to call to Dominica during the 2014-2015 season, bringing 292,210 visitors to the island. Wednesday, December 3rd is the 22nd Annual International Day for Persons with Disabilities. In light of the Dominica Association of Persons with Disabilities celebration of this day, GIS News spoke to DAPD Director Natalie Murthy.
International Day for Persons with Disabilities was proclaimed by the United Nations in 1992. And each year, there's a specific theme that is selected to commemorate the event. This year's theme, and of course International Day for Persons with Disabilities, is observed on December 3rd. Now this year, the theme is Sustainable Development, the Promise of Technology.
Murphy delved into the sub-themes which highlight this year's observance.
And there are 3 sub-themes that the United Nations want countries around the world to focus on. It has to do with sustainable development in the area of people with disabilities and how do they incorporate them in the whole issue of sustainable development. And we know in the past there have been the Millennium Development Goals, which unfortunately, when they were adopted, had left out people with disabilities. And we also know that a new set of goals, which they now call Sustainable Development Goals 2015, that's going to be implemented, and thankfully provisions have been made to incorporate people with disabilities in the whole sustainable development agenda.
More themes include sustainable development in disaster risk situations and sustainable development in a working environment. The director gave details on the week of activities to be held by the DAPD.
The week of activities at DAPD, we are more or less putting on a display where we will be showcasing some of the equipment that we have acquired at DAPD in terms of facilitating persons with disabilities to use the technology, to be part of ICT, and of course to be able to use the technology when they really have to. So we are having the display from tomorrow until Friday, and we are extending an invitation to members of the public. Now we are also organizing on Wednesday, well, it's not organized, but one of the features that we have is a national address by His Excellency, the President of Dominica, Charles Sovereign, and at 11 we will be on DBS Radio talking gender, where people with disabilities will be discussing the whole myths and misconceptions with regards to people with disabilities, all the issues that affect us. So we're more or less enlightening the public and again continuing to raise awareness and share information to the public with regards to the plight, the needs, the issues of people with disabilities. And on Saturday, we'll have a grand assembly for our members, friends, well-wishers at the Goodwill Parish Hall from 9 to 1 p.m., where we will, as I said, it's a grand assembly, but more or less socializing, and it will have different features as well, like a talent show, praise and worship, spending some time looking at the whole issue of the technology, how does people with disabilities, how do people with disabilities use the technology in their everyday life. So basically that is what we have planned here at DAPD.
GIS News will bring you more on this story in a subsequent newscast. In exactly 1 week, Dominicans will go to the polls to elect men and women to serve the nation for the next 5 years. Every citizen of the Commonwealth of Dominica 18 years and over should exercise their right to vote. GIS is bringing you information on where to vote in all 21 constituencies. Last time, we gave you information on where to vote in the Grand Bay, La Plaine, and the Maho constituencies. We continue with these next 3 constituencies. The Marigot constituency. This constituency comprises Marigot and Melville Hall. Persons registered in the Concord area will vote at the Concord Primary School, and those in Sam's Gutter will vote at the Pentecostal Church in Sam's Gutter. In Marigot East, persons will vote at the W.S. Stevens School. Persons in Marigot West with last names A to D will vote at the Methodist Vocational School, while persons with last names E to K will cast their ballots at the Old Zion Building. Still in Marigot West, persons with last names L to Z will vote at the Marigot Village Council office. We move on to Montjon Rivière-Sirique constituency. This constituency comprises Grand Fort, Montjon, and Rivière-Sirique. Persons in Grand Fort will cast their ballots at the Grand Fort Primary School. Registered voters in Rivière-Sirique with last names A to K will vote at the Rivière-Sirique Village Council office, while persons with last names L to Z will vote at the Rivière-Sirique Preschool. Those in Montjon will cast their ballots at the Montjon Primary School. And finally, the Paybush constituency. This constituency comprises Ansdime, Calibishi, Hampstead, and Paybush. Registered voters in this constituency in Benz will cast their ballots at the Benz Primary School. Voters in Ansdime, the Ansdime Catholic Church Hall. In Calibishi, persons will cast their vote at the Calibishi Primary School, and in Paybush, voters will cast their ballots at the Paybush Primary School. In a previous cast, we told you that persons in Casabruce North would vote at the house of Alexander Challenger. GIS apologizes for this error and inform you that persons in the Casabruce North area will cast their ballots at the Casabruce Primary School. Next time, we will look at where to vote in the Portsmouth, Roseau Central, and Roseau North constituencies. And that's the English news. McPherson St. Luce is next with the Creole highlights.
Allô tout le monde, bienvenue à cette nouvelle en créole. Non, moi, c'est McPherson St. Luce. Premièrement, le gouvernement Dominica remercie Turquie pour ordinateur recevé pour le ministre agriculture. Parole celle-là sortie au permanent secrétaire ministre agriculture Harold Gist. En une semaine passée, le ministre l'a recevé ce ordinateur-là.
Le gouvernement Dominique nous les complimenter Turquie et nous le dit Turquie. Bien merci pour cadeau ça là et le gouvernement Dominique avec c'est un bagage qui vient bien vite parce qu'il fait nous avons une discussion et puis en mois de juillet avec actuellement tous ces computers déjà arrivés. Il a gagné, il voyez descendre bah nous avec tout bagage là en place. Nous avons décidé déjà que ces différentes régions Dominique là nous avons fait agriculture qui a trouvé un computer mettez en officiel pour ça fait travail avec pour nous ça avancer agriculture Dominique.
Monsieur Guis fait parole qui c'est ordinateur là qui assiste pour disséminer information en industrie agriculture.
Nous avons différents qualités de problèmes avec maladies, plans, black cigato, tristisia, virus, tous ces bagages là avec information comment pour communiquer avec disséminer information pour planter pour l'école pour différents monde parce que ça c'est pas un problème seulement pour mon agriculteur ça c'est un problème pour tout le monde comme ça même les monde qui ont des types plans au l'entour yo besoin d'information ça aussi parce que si un monde en pieds orange avait une tristisia virus même si c'est un seul pied une maladie ça c'est en manière pour maladie si mais avait pas mon problème comme ça toute information ça est bon pour tout le monde nous va essayer qui ces compétences ça aider nous pour disséminer l'information pour avancer à l'agriculture dominique.
En d'autres nouvelles, le gouvernement Dominique a formulé un plan pour le secteur figue et puis banane. Parole celle-là sortie de l'officier quarantine Ryan Ansem. Monsieur Ansem aussi fait parole. Consultation qui pour chaîne l'année prochaine.
Nous avons gardé en année 9 là pour nous avancer en draft stratégie nous en les bananes et les figues. Nous jouons hier et nous dit l'année 9 là, nous avons fait une national consultation, là, nous avons mené toutes ces planteurs, pas toutes, mais nous avons invité planteurs pour venir pour nous discuter comment ils regardent, comment ils les on secteur figue avec banane, nous avons un draft, nous avons tapé bon support dans BAM, European Union, pour nous regarder comment nous avons avancé figue avec banane en Dominique. So encore, le ministre de l'Agriculture a travaillé bien, pas seulement Black Sigatoka, mais nous avons des problèmes avec la production, fiaturer des problèmes avec quantité figue yo ka tapé pour yo voyer en la UK. So encore tout le monde pour travailler ensemble pour nous regarder comment l'industrie a avancé.
En notre nouvelle, le gouvernement Dominique a awardé 7 contrats pour travail. Oui, commencé à Sichime, Rosalie Link projet ça qui est branché ces deux communautés salam, qui aussi facilité habitants et puis plus production à l'occasion salam. Projet là qui commencé en l'année 2009. Déjà, voit 9 millions de dollars dépensés et puis contrat 9 salam qui mène 12 millions de dollars. Projet ça c'est un versement pas en pour résident salam, mais Premier ministre Honorable Roosevelt Skerritt, membre parlement Honorable Johnson Drago, autant plaisir que Dominica Labour Party qu'a bâti un autre projet qui a été fait pour mettre pour. Projet ça c'est un cadre de gouvernement Venezuela par bon compliment Petro-Caribe. Et puis finalement, le département de la Dominique a créé assez de monde qui sont engagés en violence domestique pour arrêter ces actions immédiatement. Parole ça sur le directeur Biola Rosie Brown. Brown aussi a créé pour respecter yon et l'autre, spécialement en temps ça.
Nous avons créé ces monde ça pour dire violence pas qu'à oué des bagailles marcher bien. Violence qu'a fait plus en plus mal dans une société. So nous créé pour reverse trend ça là pour stop ka violate on l'autre. Respecter respecter tout moun ni droit pour être à la paix, à l'amour est important pour nous ça être qu'on famille la famille mais qu'on famille à classe qu'on famille à société qu'on famille à une nation pour nous ça respecter avec garder pour entrer son l'autre et pour tourner tourner en 360 degrés pour nous tourner against des violence ça là because ça pas qu'à aider nous qu'on moun en famille il pas qu'à aider nous en nation. So c'est ça moi te créé.
Messieurs mesdames, ça c'est tout pour nouvelle en créole pour à présent. Non moi c'est McPherson Luce. Au revoir.
Coming up, tips for budgeting this Christmas.
Dominica is blessed with an abundance of water, but getting it to your home is an expensive venture. You have a responsibility to conserve water, to use it wisely. Remember the old adage, you never miss the water till the well runs dry. Think water, think life.
As the month of January kicks off the new year, the air begins to buzz with familiar phrases like, I'm broke, or it's going to be a really tight month financially. Generally, people spend Christmas as if they were unaware of its coming. Well, heads up, it will be on the 25th of this month, and here's a tip to help you prepare against those New Year financial blues. Plan for affordability, not desire. Do not make a list first, then wonder how you will pay for everything you want. Make your budget first, then prioritize what it is you can afford. And that's all for this edition of National Focus. We always welcome your suggestions and comments. Drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm or visit our website at news.gov.dm. Like our Facebook page, facebook.com/GISNewsDominica, and follow us on our Twitter at GIS Dominica. You can also catch up on past National Focus newscasts on our GIS Dominica YouTube channel. From all of us here on the GIS News production team, I'm Colette Ambo. Thanks for watching.